Hello and welcome to Dixon Cox with me, Nick Dixon, and TV's Paul Cox. We're going to go through the week's politics as we tend to do in a light-hearted yet informative fashion. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm good, thanks, Nick. I'm good. Little weather update. I think that's important for each of the beginning of the Dixon Coxes. Sunny, warm, global warming, super.
Sunny. Yesterday, my life was filled with rain, whatever the lyrics are.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's beautiful. I've been outside sniffing the flowers like a true patriot.
Yeah, and you've been in trouble for that in your neighbourhood, but you're allowed to do it within the confines of your own garden.
Flowers just happens to be the name of my neighbour's wife.
That's the kind of banter you can expect here today, guys. We will be talking about the immigration white paper, but we'll also be doing weird jokes. I should have brought my fan. It is proper hot. It is a proper scorcher, mate. We're not used to this up north.
Scorch you all.
We've got so much to cover. We've got the Starmer becoming Enoch Starmer and going hard on immigration and coming out with the white paper. Rupert Lowe is cleared by the old Met Police. What was all that about? Absolutely absurd. And we might do some other stories as well if we have time at the end, perhaps in the paywall bit, on nickdixon.net, where I advise you strongly to go and sign up because we have so many great interviews with Ben Habib. Got another great one coming out. Who else we've had? Carl Benjamin, we've had Lord Frost, so many people. And we get the extended versions of Dixon Cox, and you get a whole extra bonus podcast where me and Paul just get really loose and smell the flowers for an hour.
Together.
And that's a weekly podcast only for subscribers on nickdixon.net. One story we don't have time to cover is Kanye's new song, but Paul told me he loved it before we came on air. Yeah, I know he's called Ye now, but Paul didn't know that. He said Kanye, and he said, I love it, not so much the music, more the message. Don't know what that meant.
Just teaching it to my nieces and nephews. Trying to get the harmonies going.
We can't really talk about that song because we can't say any of the words. It's quite hard to talk about something where you can't say any of the words.
No.
Paul, did you enjoy that? Blank. And you just go, yes, I particularly liked blank.
Can't even sign it.
No, that's true. Definitely don't sign it. It's almost worse. So the main story, Paul, has to be Starmer coming out and saying we're becoming an island of strangers. An island of... It was a beautiful poetic phrase. Now, some people said, many people on many sides said it echoed Enoch Powell's 1968 Rivers of Blood speech and some of the language he used. I thought that was pretty absurd. What did he say about strangers? Something similar, didn't he? A similar take about strangers. I'll find in a minute the exact wording, but I thought that was pretty absurd and pretty hilarious to see Starmer suddenly going to the right. He went to the right of everyone. Farage said it was the wrong language to use. You know, Ian Dale had a total meltdown.
Farage was clutching his pearls.
Yeah. Go, ooh, that's a bit divisive. Yeah. It was hilarious. So he's suddenly gone to the right of everyone. The left are going absolutely mental, and all the usual people who like Starmer and love Starmer are just lost. Even James O'Brien's totally confused, doesn't know which side to take. All these lefties saying, I mean, you just go through endless one. Here's someone, Lauren Thomas, don't know who that is. I don't even know what to say about the immigration white paper. I feel sick. I feel defeated. I cannot recommend the UK as a place to live any longer. So it's already working. That Super Tansky person on Twitter said she was off to France. Like, brilliant. Kevin Maguire on Good Morning Britain just went completely mental about it. And he claimed most people like the change in Britain. I'm like, which people has Kevin been speaking to? Not anyone I know.
Just straight into the mirror.
Yeah. It's extraordinary. Here's another person, Nikita Bazzi, SMP. Starmer's language towards immigrants is dangerous and disgusting. My parents were immigrants when they first came to this country, and I can assure you that they and many others are not strangers on this island. Disgusting rhetoric. Starmer is an embarrassment. I'm like, this just keeps giving, really. This is so good. It's so funny. And Starmer, he's got a whole new lease of life, Paul. Today in the comments, he was asked a question by, what's it called? She's called Savile something. I've forgotten her name now. And I needed to get some of these things ready. Liz Savile Roberts. And she did this long thing about, is there anything that the Prime Minister has, been consistent on or something? He said, yeah, the fact that you speak rubbish. It was so good. He's like, bang. It was just like, he's had his
He's
wheat a
quite
bit.
good at PMQ, Starmer.
Yes.
On the whole, credit where credit's due.
He's not bad. And he's up against Kemi, who's so bad. And Kemi completely missed this opportunity. Now, could she have said anything? Could she have said, well, it's good to see the Prime Minister's Damascene conversion on immigration and him channeling Enoch Powell. That would have been like funny. And then she could have said, but he doesn't believe it. He won't do it. He won't leave the ECHR. Although she's a bit soft on it. Presumably she didn't, because he can then just say, well, in her government, the numbers came to 1 million. So he can just say that, which is why she was a weak choice for leader. One of the reasons it should have been.
He virtually did anyway in his speech. The 2019 to 2021, 2022 figures or whatever they are obscene.
Yeah.
What is now known as the Boris wave is a true dereliction of post for Boris and the Conservatives. And well, we'll get onto it in a minute, but irrespective of what you might believe politically, no one has taken charge of this. And he talked about taking back control, and I was thinking, taking back control from who? When was the last time we had control? I think it was like Margaret Thatcher. John Major might get a shout, but I don't know when the last time we had a control. And of course, things were different then, Nick. But sorry, I've interrupted.
No, it's fine. I ranted for ages, but it's quite funny for him to use "Take Back Control," the "Vote Leave" slogan, and to invoke good old Powell. So Powell said they found themselves made strangers in their own country. We must be literally mad. He said they found themselves made strangers in their own country. And Starmer said, we risk becoming an island of strangers.
Strangers in the night.
My theory is Starmer is so intransigent. He never backs down. So if he was challenged, he'll end up saying, actually, I do see the river Tiber flowing with much blood, and it's right to say so. It's right to say so. After 14 years of Tory incompetence, I could easily... You can't back down, right? Yeah, actually, Enoch was right. I just want to... That speech... No, a lot of people get that wrong.
Have you seen his new book, Mein Keir? He just dedicated several years in prison to writing it. Oh, it's incredible. Things that come to mind immediately is it's funny. It really is bants from a right-wing perspective, because there are so many left-wing commentators that have told us all they voted for Keir Starmer and this Labour Party because it was the future and it changes now. And it turns out they voted for things that are much further right than was ever available to the electorate back during the general election. And it's astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing. The other thing, of course, is who writes this for him? Because does he write this himself? We see the reason I ask this question, if you look at PMQs, you can almost see the lawyer in him, the barrister in him. He stands up in PMQs. He's able to dish the bants out, come back with some fast one-liners. I used to assume that was something that was written, but my professional instinct as a comedian is that he's doing that in the moment. I think. I'm not sure how much awareness he has of the questions that are being asked and who's asking them. I'm sure quite a lot. I'd imagine that's tied down something Lindsay Hall looks after. So maybe it's preordained what he's going to say, but his timing's exceptional if he's reading a pre-written quip. And the reason I doubt he is because when you see him stand up and read this Take Back Control speech, I forget what it said. It's now a brown colour with white in the middle.
Yeah, he's gone for quite sort of retro, sort of 70s sensible kind of lettering, hasn't he?
He's literally harking back and
securing Britain's future is what it said.
We all look at that now, don't we? We all look at it and go, "What's it going to say next time?"
Yeah. See it. I'm off.
Yeah,
I've had enough.
Here's more horse shit. That would be great if it's just said it along the bottom. Here's another load of wank. Yeah. Here's some pre-prepared wank for you all to laugh at tomorrow.
What if you had something on it and you just went against it? That'd be so hard to start. Yeah. I can't go against a bit of wood.
Yeah, exactly. And he says it with a straight face, taking back control. We were the party. This white paper's been 3 years in the writing. I mean, white paper, yeah. Get out, mate. At least change the name of it now. He's getting himself in all sorts of bother,
diverse
isn't he?
Paper.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, diverse, yeah. A POC. The POC paper. But I really, honestly, it's flabbergasting that I actually went back and watched it. I saw some of it live, and then I went back and watched it along with the press conference afterwards. And it was funny. Even Chris, even Choppers is like, it felt like because he invoked this whole GB News viewership. What can you tell our viewers? Which, he does quite often. But Robert Peston and those sort of people, they don't do that. They were all sort of aghast, and they, what about what about Chopper's like, seeing you're now speaking directly to the far right, what could you tell our viewers at GB News?
Yeah, when will you send them back?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chris. I'm going to send them all back.
Choppers is very professional. He's actually, he sits right on the fence on a lot of things. But it's almost, if he'd got up and given it a big "get in, Starmer," that would have been totally acceptable during that speech. And it's kind of, what's really interesting is how
high five Starmer.
Yeah, just leaning across Peston. I can have that, boy. And they're so interesting. The reaction from the right's been really amusing because they've just kind of collectively stood back and gone, This is unbelievable. Quite clearly, and he said in his speech, some people will think this is a reaction, to essentially reform. You're thinking, you don't need to say that, mate. We're all thinking that, but the fact that you're saying it tells us that's exactly what it is.
That was one of the funniest bits to me when he went, people who like politics will make this about politics as certain parties. He said it in this weird euphemistic way. It's like, yes, you got spanked in the local elections by reform. So that's why you're doing this, and that's why you make the speech. Although he can say, as you point out, it did go back to November. They were sort of foreshadowing this, and people say Blair's behind it. He was going to do something like this, but the timing is obviously to make a big announcement just after the local elections. The timing is kind of perfect.
Oh, undoubtedly.
And he said people who like to play politics, obviously it's politics. And then he's the prime minister. But then he
it was nonsensical, that piece.
Yeah, he said that, but then he said, "But it's not because of that. It's because I believe it." And he just thought, "Do you believe it, Starmer? You just believe." And I'm going to say this as a compliment. Actually, Starmer believes whatever is pragmatic to believe, and there's something actually good about that from the elite theory perspective. We have some fans of elite theory on this channel. He's just doing what it takes. He's responding to the views of what the people want, which is to reduce immigration. A bit late, too little, too late, but he is doing it, and he's realizing this is what it takes to stay in power. And actually, that's not a bad thing because we want this. If Starmer got this done, I'm happy that he gets it done. I don't need it to be reformed because I'm like tribal or any other party because I'm tribal or something. I'm just like, whoever can stop the re-immigration, whoever stops it. Now, I'm not saying that I suddenly believe he will, by the way, but whoever did, I'd be like that guy.
It lacks integrity, though, doesn't it, at every turn? Because it's only a cursory look at Google will tell you the type of work that Keir Starmer did in the many decades previous to becoming a politician and, of course, now Prime Minister. It was all the antithesis of what he's talking about. So what did he believe? Is he just doing everything for money? Is he just doing everything for power? If he truly meant this, why didn't he come out and say it 2 weeks ago? That could have. I don't think it would have changed the reform result, but it might. I mean, those 6 votes they won by might not have happened if he'd stood up and done his rivers of blood speech 2 weeks ago. It would have been interesting to see. I don't believe he has any integrity. He's not.
He did a speech, though, didn't he? Back in, was it November? When he did that speech, we said this was deliberate.
There was
when he did his far-right
wasn't
conspiracy speech. Huh?
Yeah, early in the day, I vaguely remember it was like a 9 a.m. thing. He stood up and went slightly Enoch Powell, and you and I have made comment on that before.
He said it was a one-nation experiment in open borders by design.
Yeah, which is the language of the far right and has been for many years. And he's put it back into play. But that was just a taste then. It was easy to take the mick because we were like, did he really mean that? Is he just skirting around it? And has he just chosen the wrong phrase? But this speech on immigration proved that whoever it is that's writing that speech has got access to the Enoch Powell YouTube channel and is absolutely rinsing it.
Who's some very online kid, yeah, you sort of imagine. We don't know, that's just a pure guess.
We don't know anything.
We don't know anything. Someone told me to follow someone called Jacques3, so I can't particularly vouch for this person because I've only just followed them, I don't know who they are. But they said something interesting on X. They said one of the really funny things over the past few days is people comparing Keir Starmer to Enoch Powell, when there's an even more obvious parallel to Keir Hardie, who was vitriolically anti-immigration, describing important Lithuanian workers as living off garlic cooked in oil stolen from street lamps and spreading the Black Death. So he was a Labour guy, and some people speculate Starmer was named after him, though I believe that's not confirmed. So maybe, there is this tradition in parts of the left and part of Labour of being very anti-immigration and very sceptical about it. That's not a new thing. That is a strand of thought in Labour. There's a very patriotic strand. Starmer's not really been associated with that strand. There's Blue Labour, there's the kind of SDP vibe, there's the Red Wall people. He's not really been one of those, but this is him saying, come back, Red Wall. I'm one of you.
This is what the James O'Briens of the world are finding out, is that there's still parts of the Labour Party that are original to the ethos of the Labour Party, which is for the working person. And the reason that Labour in 70s and 80s, and I'm sure before that, would have been skeptical of so much immigration, particularly to bolster the economy, is because it would have impacted heavily on the British workforce, which of course it's done now to the point that we've got such unskilled labour that we have people in the country that would do jobs that most people wouldn't do. And, which creates this whole weird dynamic where you say, well, the British people won't do that. Well, what is it? Oh, yeah, well, we've got the bird shit cleaners that are wandering around Brighton. You're like, yeah, well, no one wants to do that anyway. So it's not like, I don't think that's an actual job.
People will do a job if there's an incentive, if there's a reasonable pay.
Yeah, I'm being facetious.
And it's always been a myth. We were fine before. What were we doing before, Paul? Did you just show up at the hospital and there was no one there? Did you show up in a taxi and it was empty and you had to drive it yourself? I've always hated it. Like, British people won't do it. How did we do the empire then? It was, it was my people, and I'm sure your people, but my people of Lancashire, where half my family come from, were in the cotton mills and it was in the Industrial Revolution. We were doing all that. Then the claim is we got to a point where we become decadent and don't do the jobs. I don't really believe it. I just believe if employers bring in low-skilled workers because they can and they're incentivized to, and we'll go over the white paper which tries to stop some of that. But if you incentivize businesses to employ British people and you incentivize British people to do them, they'll do them.
Everything's a manipulation of the truth to maintain the narrative. That's all it's been. Ever since the Blair government, and by the way, Blair is almost certainly behind this white paper. I have no evidence of that, by the way. No evidence whatsoever, but almost certainly I'm going to,
I spoke to him yesterday.
My personal opinion is, he's in a WhatsApp group I'm in.
He's very hard to get. It used to be very hard to get hold of on the phone, didn't he, Blair? You couldn't even reach him by phone.
Even if you were Gordon Brown. But now he's easy.
You had to go and consult your globe, and you had to rub the globe, and then he appears in a kind of projection.
He's just on like Discord forums. Send them back. He's got a whole Reddit thing going on. But obviously it goes right back to him and his policy and growing the economy the way they did in the late 90s by opening up the borders. And at that point, it didn't seem like a scary thing. But they started talking about multiculturalism then. And obviously against the 1990s, when the halcyon days of the 90s, when people were like, cool, we've got to a point now. We've had immigration over the years, trickle immigration since the 60s. Yeah, we're integrated now. It feels integrated, assimilated now. Lots of at that point, sort of black people and brown people were fully integrated into British society. Yet racism was still there, but on the whole, most people are culturally assimilated, and nobody really had a problem with that, and they were providing much use throughout the economy. And then, of course, we flooded it with unskilled labour, and we didn't ask people to assimilate and integrate, and we degraded all British culture and said that anything associated with the flag or white people was racist. And of course, we're at a point now where people have truly believed that. So the people on the left have still maintained the narrative throughout. If you took the left narrative from today and took it back to the 90s, and most of us would probably be okay. Yes, it's a bit much. We don't have any. We're not seeing the problems. Okay, so it seems a bit much to say the things we're saying now. You fast forward 30 years, and it's everywhere. It's the emperor's clothes everywhere. There are naked emperors scattered across the UK, and there are people pointing it out. And those are the people are getting punished, as you often say, for noticing. We are punishing the people for noticing. So we've got this environment now where that narrative still clings, and it is losing its grip day by day. And what is absolutely fascinating to see is you could probably go back 6 months, maybe a year, back to the beginning of this Labour government, and there is no way, if I told you then Keir Starmer was going to do a speech like he did this week, nobody would believe me. If I said, look, guys, I've just been to 2025, it's all fucking going on. It's like sunny every day, and Keir Starmer is more right-wing than anyone else. You'd be like, I don't believe any of that.
Yeah.
So
no, big shifts. And part of it is due to the online discourse. And as you
Of
say, a lot of
course.
it is due to what's happening right in front of people's eyes, and they're asking you not to believe your eyes. Like all these tweets, Britain's a nation of immigrants. It always has been. No, it hasn't. Oh, I came to the country and I'm amazing, and so is my dad. I think that we should judge that. And there's always kind of tweets. And the other thing is the friends and neighbors thing that went out. There's this amazing memo that went out. Immigrants are our friends and neighbors, and multiple accounts were using it. Even the Green Party account was using it. And you're going like, who has put this memo out? It's so weak. Anyone on the left that adapts to this and realizes they have to reckon with this will survive, and if they don't, they won't. So there's different responses. One response is to pivot back to it's the rich. I've seen this response. No, it's actually billionaires that are the problem. It's the Gary Stevenson response I've seen. That some people have taken that approach. It's the rich, it's inequality, it's services, but it's not immigrants. Another one is to just go with this very bland, ridiculous thing that it's your friends and neighbours. You look at Dawn Butler, strangers are friends just waiting to connect. Here in Brent, our community is our strength. I'm proud to be an MP for one of the most diverse areas in Europe where over 140 languages are spoken, which I said was virtually a biblical prophecy. How can you have one borough with 140 languages? Our unity reflects London, where we connect through laughter, acceptance, and more. What are you talking about? Laughter, acceptance, and more.
It sounds like something someone has got written on the wall of a council estate house.
Yeah, it's some mural
Live,
to
life, laugh.
keep your spirits up in the shithole that you live in. I know, and I just said, well, we've seen
Nothing wrong
murder,
with
rape,
council estates.
muggings, gaming of benefits and housing, two-tier justice, DEI, hatred of native Brits, a general feeling that our country's become unrecognisable, and this is all they have is childish platitudes in response, which is kind of what you're saying. People now just
They,
believe their
they,
eyes.
they don't. Well, yes, and the left-wing North London intelligentsia are being exposed, and being exposed for not being especially intelligent either, because they don't. It's falling apart at the seams. So when someone says, "Me and my parents came here and they assimilated and they did a great job and everyone loved them and everyone loves me," that's talking about individualism, and their whole ethos is about this collectivism. So those two, so what? And that's just an opinion as well. If you can say that as an immigrant. If I said, I'm a white guy and I oppose immigration, then I'm chucked into a huge bucket.
Especially if
So
you do that with your hand at the same time.
yeah.
We spoke about this, Paul.
We just it's no longer what it was. It's no longer opposing immigration is no longer what it was. It used to be, I don't want any, and there are people that follow us and that we know that would have absolutely zero immigration and they would have all the country looking the same way. Okay, but I don't think that's what this message is about anymore. This is why this is gathering so much pace, and you've got the leader of the left-wing party, left-wing government, talking the way they do, is because they have suddenly realised that it's changed, and a disproportional amount of people have noticed the equilibrium has shifted, the centre of gravity has shifted,
Yeah.
and because of that, politics has to shift too. And this is where we learn, and this is why I talk about the left-wing North London intelligentsia. They have for so long, since the Blair government, sat there upon that high horse, pointing out things and getting away with it because the vast majority of people in power supported it because they knew they could get away with it. Now they cannot get away with it because the society has changed beyond recognition. And of course, everyone's got a camera in their pocket now. There is evidence. You used to be able to say, "Well, I've heard this, I've heard that," or you can't say, if you can't fly the Union Jack anymore. If you do, you end up in prison, or something Stuart Lee-ish like that, right? Now that used to be quite amusing because obviously it was outrageous to say so. It's now evidenced all over Twitter and everywhere else. I mean, talking about the immigration speech, Simon Evans said one of the things that really made me laugh out loud. He was saying with Connolly, in her sentence, that they better hurry up and sort the conviction out because essentially it's becoming Labour's policy now. The things that people wrote on Twitter to go into prison are becoming Labour's policy now. That was just July and August last year. It's incredible to think that we now have people in prison for pointing out the things that Keir Starmer said in a speech to the nation yesterday.
Yeah, and we've not even touched on that, but that's true. I mean, Southport, the police now saying that there's no evidence that it was the far right and that it was organised, which is what I said at the time, got in trouble with some people. It's like, where's my apology? Where's Starmer's apology to the nation for that? That's unbelievable. Just a quick thing on your point about the North London people. I mean, yes, there's the Corbyn in East and North London who will carry on being mental, and he's already said something mental about this. But the Starmer voter, who the kind
The
of people
centrist dad,
they
the
will still
blob.
vote. Yeah, the people in my football team, they'll say things like, "Oh yeah, places change." They'll say very glib and vague things about immigration, but this won't put them off Starmer. They'll just quietly vote for him still. So,
Agreed, but of course, we've only got, by the metric of this time last year, they're all massive racists now.
of course,
So,
yes, yeah,
so absolutely
yeah.
no problem with which way they vote or who they vote for, but as long as they're happy to admit that they now can be called racists by themselves.
Yes, as long as we agree on that. Oh yeah, I forgot about the funny meme I did as well. Keir Starmer watching those local election results come in, and it was the meme of the American History X thing,
Just
because he
his evolution.
yeah, he became a Nazi over that night, just watching like, oh, this is what I have to do, and fair play to him, he can adapt and become whatever he needs to be. Trying to find something else where I
There
posted
is no
about. Oh yeah,
integrity, though. That's it. Wait, sorry, I thought you were
no,
going
just
to
quickly, this
need a
friends and
minute.
neighbours thing. So Helena Horton, who was some Guardian person, said, "Sad to hear Keir Starmer saying immigration is turning the UK into an island of strangers. People who have moved here from other countries are my friends and neighbours, not strangers." Jerry Hassan. Tragic to hear Keir Starmer say that immigration has turned the UK into an island of strangers. What a narrow, nasty, pessimistic view of the people of the UK. People who have made the UK their home from around the world include my friends and neighbours and are not strangers. Nadia Whittome, MP. The step up in anti migration rhetoric from the government is shameful and dangerous. Migrants are our neighbours, friends, and family. To suggest that Britain risks becoming an island of strangers because of immigration mimics the scaremongering of the far right. And I said the friends and neighbours memo has gone out to all the NPCs. Don't believe your eyes, your experiences, all the statistics. Just keep repeating the convenient lie. And just on that, the statistics, something I forgot to say earlier when you were talking about the press conference itself. Peston gets up and asks some question about the economy, and Starmer tells him that the economic benefits have been debunked of immigration, and that's an extraordinary development because we've been saying it for ages.
30
But
years of lies.
exactly,
30 years of
yeah, I
lies.
know, and they got it wrong, and they go, and actually, it's these people, many of the people are on social housing, and certain nations are on like 72% of them are on social housing, and then you look at you just look at the net drain on tax, you find like hardly any of them are net contributors. It's all been a myth. We'll go into that on the detail. Is there anything though you want to say before I get into the detail of the
Now, other
white
than to
paper?
say that all these people are pointing out that these immigrants are their friends and neighbours, they're othering themselves because there are plenty of immigrants in this country that think the same way, as we do, that have seen people within their own communities not assimilate and integrate. This isn't just they always do this, right? Everybody on my side thinks the same. No, that's why this is changing. That's why I talk about the North London Liberals in the way that I do, because they're isolating themselves further and further because they're no longer connected to the people they thought they were preaching at.
Yeah, it's a point worth making about the different types of immigration. I mean, there's a clip of a black guy on the streets of London talking about immigration and saying Enoch Powell was right, and saying that actually, we're sort of we sort of fit in and we're the same and we have our fry ups, and then there's these people from other countries, different language, different customs. He's noticing a completely different wave of immigration, and that's correct. I mean, I spoke to a taxi driver from Cyprus who's like, I work really hard at this and that, but now these new immigrants, he's not a fan. So of course,
Mm.
it's not just the gammons.
Yeah,
It's very much the
they're
different
chucking them
generation.
all in, and it doesn't stand up to scrutiny any longer. That would be my final point on it. Is you're well out of touch. You're just talking the same tropes the whole time. We are all all brown people think the same. All gay people think the same. All immigrants think the same. It's all the same tropes. No, it's not true. This is why when you have identity politics like that, it eventually and inevitably fails because everybody's a human being. We're the ones saying skin color doesn't matter. We're the ones saying culture matters. And we're the ones saying that it's important to maintain an incumbent historical culture. And if you go to proud European countries, Lithuania, for instance, really, really proud country of people that managed to detach themselves from Russia, the first country in that bloc to do so, they were able to do so because they believed in the culture of their country. And they're within that EU bloc, and lots of people look at that and go, "Well, they must be, they must be great." Then all they did is the things that people within this country that believe in the incumbent culture of this country want to do. It's
There's
just
actually
inconvenient.
an interesting clip from Powell back in the day where he says skin color is not significant in itself, but as a signaling of something else. So he's basically saying, as white British people become less and less of the population, that is a significant change. That is going to massively change the country, and it is their home. It's not about one person has more or less melanin because of there's less sun around, but it's about what that means. And Robert Jenrick got grilled by a media NPC. He said places like, I think did he say Dagenham? He talked about places changing rapidly and the white British population being massively reduced. And the interview is like, oh, is that bad? What's wrong with that? And we always have to go through this. I just said it's insane that if you say maybe British people shouldn't be raised in Britain, the media NPC you're speaking to will go, why is that bad? And start to malfunction unless you give some vague, safe answer. Could they instead explain why it's a good thing? And even Alison Pearson retweeted that, which I say because she's a respected mainstream journalist. It's such a weird point to every time we say, "Hey guys, maybe British people shouldn't be totally just eradicated." Maybe it's racist. It's like I think we're all done with all that because it wouldn't work in any other place. Like let's just go over to some small island and just get rid of all the people and tell them they're scum and they have no culture. I mean, it just wouldn't. I think people are absolutely done with that because why? And we've seen
It's ethnic cleansing.
Well, we look at the South Africa thing, and we haven't got time to cover it, but people are against the South African refugees into America, and you go, I thought you were pro-refugees. Trump said they're being killed. Oh, well, we're not those ones. Oh, because they're white. That's it. Oh, that's all it was. That's all it was then. It wasn't about refugees, was it? You just hated white people.
I don't think we can say much more on that. Absolutely, it's terrifying.
Yeah, we just go why. You just ask a few questions why, and pretty soon you scratch one of these lefties.
They don't
someone
know
who just hates
why
white
either.
Huh?
These journalists don't know why. They don't know why they believe it.
Oh, the journalists don't.
They used to be able to hark back and go, "Well, these important people said it as well, so we must be right." Those important people are changing their minds.
Yeah,
this is why you get this reaction to Keir Starmer. Because he's linked into the people that they've been referring back to for the last 20 or 30 years, and now they don't have that baseline to bounce off.
Yeah,
they've just got their comments have got to stand up to scrutiny, and they've got to say why it's good, not generic arguing why it's bad.
Burden of proof on them because they're in the post-war liberal bubble whose assumptions have now been tested to breaking point, and they just mouthing the same platitudes, and we're like, hang on, why? Why is that? Why do we have to have our country destroyed again?
It's dead.
Huh?
It's dead. Their philosophies are dead.
And we're winning. So the actual detail, though, Paul, the question is now, will he actually get anything done? And people will be right to be skeptical on this, obviously. And just looking at the Telegraph here, breaking down some of the things that the white paper actually does. Of course, he refused to set a cap, but predicted that migration will fall significantly. So language skills is part of it. Skilled foreign workers will face tougher English language tests to get visas to come to the UK. Under the white paper, they'll be required to have the equivalent of A-level standard English, where they can speak fluently and spontaneously and flexibly and effectively. That's Lewis Schaefer gone, for social, academic and professional purposes. I was worried I'd mess that up and have to be immediately deported.
Immediately gone.
Previously, they've been required to only have the equivalent of GCSE level, where they had to understand the main issues regularly encountered in work, school or leisure. So they're putting that back up. The language requirement, that's an absolute no-brainer, surely. I mean, if you can't speak the language, of course you'll have no integration, right?
Well, yes, that's absolutely right. And it seems astonishing that that's never really been a thing to ask for. And that's, when you look at things like dictatorships and autocracies, first of all, they invade, and which is a physical measure. And the second thing they'll come for is language and religion, the things that bring the communities together. And I'm not trying to, this is not hyperbole. If you allow the eradication of a language, you allow the eradication of a people. It's very simple. Now, I know this is happening on a minute scale. I know the vast majority of people speak English. So I'm not saying this is exactly what's happening. But if you don't protect these things, if you don't value your culture and the thing that brings your culture together, i.e. the glue, which is the language, then ultimately what you're saying is you are open to the idea that your culture can be eradicated. And of course, what we've done is we have said that culture is bad. Culture is good everywhere. The only places you can think of that they criticise culture are the main huge Western societies, America, Britain, for instance. Okay, even with France, the culture supported. Germany, Austria, Italians, Spanish, Lithuania, Estonia. All these people are proud, and rightly so, of their heritage and their culture, and it's protected. If for whatever reason you say you are proud to be English, then you are in a sticky situation, because that's now synonymous with something negative, and we've allowed that to happen,
Well,
and therefore the English language is bad. And
right.
before and you end up in a position where you're defending just the very basic human rights of your culture.
Yeah, it's funny. Some people say, "Well, what about English people abroad and they don't learn other language?" It's like, yes, ours is the best and it won. Um, but just to move it, since for the first time, spouses, children, or parents of successful visa applicants who want to join them in the UK will have to pass A1 level language tests as well. Let's just hit these reasonably quickly because there's quite a lot of them. Care workers. Care homes will be barred from recruiting overseas staff from later this year and will instead be required to hire foreign or British staff who are already in the UK. By the way, one thing we haven't hit on is just the fact that there's already so many people here that unless Starmer's prepared to do deportations, what do you end up with really? You're freezing it where it is, kind of Singapore level, 76%
What happens
Chinese.
if they fail these tests?
I just was thinking out loud though on that is that in general with immigration, there's so many people already here. The best we're going to do is freeze it and have a kind of have to have lots of authoritarian rules to keep it going. But anyway, care workers. I think the care workers thing is that's an obvious one because that's been a scam as well. We heard people calling into Tom Swarbrick, for example, on LBC saying, I just came in as a care worker and then switched to a different job. It's a total scam. His cousin set up a company or something. There's all these scams. There's no reason that all care workers had to be. People, what about the care workers? Well, we'll train our own. It won't take very long. You can't call them low skilled. That's just an objective description, meaning they're not. They don't have to have a degree. It doesn't take that long to train them. People are mental over this. It's not that hard to get our own care workers back, and that's what this aims to do. So currently, most of them come from India, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe. So this might change that a bit. Any comment, Paul?
They don't value care workers. They pay them a pittance. I mean, I don't know, Nick. We've never had this discussion, but I've had reason through family members that have been in care homes to interact with care homes, and we all know the exorbitant cost to the families of the people that are in care. Park that for 1 minute. But I've always seen great care in the homes I've been. It's like when you're in an NHS hospital. You always, the 9 times out of 10, and we know there are some malevolence there, but 9 times out of 10, these are great people. And the very people that are saying, well, what about? They're not saying, why don't we pay these people more than minimum wage? They're never saying that. They're saying, well, this is why they're essentially saying, oh, but I like the very cheap foreign labour. Why can't we have more of that? They don't recognise what they're saying. And this is why I keep coming back to the same thing. They're all stupid, but because they don't think critically about their beliefs, their systems, because it's been propped up. They don't have to. We've been told since school, we've been programmed, this is the way to think, this is the right way to think, this is the wrong way to think. Don't have that view, don't question that philosophy. And in doing so, you've just bred a whole nation of stupid people who won't critically think for themselves. And it's why you end up with endless leaders that are thick as pig shit. Sorry, Nick.
On the care thing, you know more about it than me, but Martin Green, Chief Executive of Care England, says it was a crushing blow to an already fragile social care sector. He says international recruitment wasn't a silver bullet, but it was a lifeline. Taking it away now with no warning, no funding, no alternative is not just short-sighted, it's cruel. Let's see. I mean, at some point you've got to get weaned off the idea of just foreign recruitment. So it's going to be painful in the short term.
And actually what's being asked for is always just the same thing, integration. So can you speak the language? Yes or no? What experiences do you have of this country? I'd expect that anywhere I went. When I was in hospital in Mallorca, most people in that hospital, the professionals in that hospital, didn't speak English. Only the receptionist did. So throughout my treatment, they would have to bring the receptionist to translate to me. Now that seems perfectly fine to me, because what I want from any hospital is, first of all, competence. And if you're in a foreign country, that competence is going to be based around the foreign culture, the foreign language, and the foreign requirement, or the incumbent for all of those things, as it would be if you were in that country. So I have no issue with that whatsoever. We wouldn't expect it elsewhere, so why don't we expect it here?
Yeah.
It goes back to the same thing, doesn't it? Everywhere else is allowed to celebrate. We're not,
Yeah.
because we're the ones being asked to accommodate. Simple as that.
Good point. This is a good one. Foreign skilled workers. The white paper will also set out plans to return the threshold for skilled foreign workers to graduate level after it was scrapped by Boris Johnson and replaced with a points-based immigration system requiring only the equivalent of an A level and based on salaries. So we know Boris did the Boris wave. That was one of the reasons for the Boris wave. Now, employers will still be allowed to recruit lower skilled workers using the points-based system, but only if they're in critical sectors such as IT, construction, and engineering, deemed by the government to be suffering shortages that are damaging the economy. So it's a sort of graduate level, except in these emergency sectors. I mean, it's something. It's better than what Boris was saying. And this will only be on a time-limited basis, and they'll have to demonstrate that they're training British workers. So it's
They won't be
virtually
able to
Steve Bannon-esque. Gone.
Sorry, they won't be able to apply for citizenship either for 10 years as well.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that was a big headline I should have probably said at the start, actually.
Sorry, Nick. Yeah,
no, you're right. It's migrants face 10-year citizenship wait without real contribution to Britain. That was a big part of it, yeah.
And that do you know what? If anyone's looking at aghast, and there won't be anyone obviously on this channel doing so, that's been true all over the world for eons. I think I've said on this podcast before, once in 2000, I had reason to look at emigrating to Canada. And I was told I absolutely could do, because I've got family over there, but they would have to essentially sign a waiver to say that they would support me for the first 10 years. At no point during those 10 years could I claim anything from the Canadian government. And it was deemed after 10 years I would have contributed enough to start taking away from it. And that's perfectly reasonable. And that didn't scare me at all. You know, I mean, at that point I was 20, so I wasn't thinking I'd need too much. And but that seems perfectly reasonable, don't you? You jump into a system and start taking from it. That's not. We don't allow it in anything else.
No, it's insane. Now, here's a controversial one. This is the one I'm most worried about. Refugees could apply for skilled work. So refugees and displaced people living abroad could apply for skilled work in the UK where they have the skills to do so under plans set out in the white paper. It said the government would explore reforms to allow a limited pool of UNHCR recognised refugees and displaced people living overseas to apply for employment. Now, this is worrying because if it was real, if we were in a normal world, it's a handful of refugees, you might go, yeah, okay, that seems reasonable. We're not in that world. We're in a world where people are coming over on boats every day, claiming to be refugees, and yet they're from countries they go back home to on holiday, etc. All the stories we've heard, whether they're coming in legally or illegally, this idea they're coming in seeking asylum, and then their home country is safe enough to have a holiday in, or it's not a country that actually has a war or anything like that. So, of course, this is another incentive, surely, for people to come over and exploit and abuse the system if they think they can actually work. I think that's a very dangerous one. I don't really know what it's doing in there. It's sort of hiding in there amongst these tougher measures where it's actually a Labour type lefty measure.
I often find this quite interesting. We often hear people when they, the counter to people complaining about migrants coming in on dinghies will be, well, it's just a very small percentage. And it is now, because there are so many here. If you went back 20 years and you saw that many people coming in on dinghies, which you did not see whatsoever, you would be like, that's an incredible amount of people coming over. Now, there's a huge amount of people coming over illegally on dinghies, risking their lives, their families' lives, the lives of the people that have to go and save them when they get into trouble, etc., etc. And we now say, don't worry about it, it's just a small percentage. That's because the amount of illegals that are here is so big. Of course it pushes the percentage down. It's just maths.
Yeah. Watch out when they start talking about the percentages. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's that one, which I think is dodgy. Maybe I've not understood it. People can tell me if I haven't. This is all quite new. Immigration skills charge. So this is the fee imposed on employers who hire from abroad will be raised by 32% to be brought in line with inflation. The charge, which is paid by employers for each skilled senior or specialist worker they employ, has not been increased since it was introduced in 2017. Funds raised by the charge will be reinvested into training the domestic workforce in priority sectors to reduce the reliance on foreign labour for skilled jobs. So again, it's similar to the care homes one. It's like there'll be a penalty for just hiring from abroad. I'm telling you, Steve Bannon will be loving all this. He's going, this is make England great again. Britain doesn't sound as good as it as Mega. What do you think to that one? Any thoughts?
Yeah,
We don't have to do them all individually because there's quite.
No, that would take all day. But it's all of this is a long time coming. Here's how you prevent all this: is you, other than having a time machine and going back, is you make people proud of where they're from. You highlight why they should be proud of where they're from or where they're coming to, like you would do with anybody else. When you join a business, you're made to feel proud to work for that business. Look at the good things that we did. Look at how far we've come. Look at the things we've done in the past. Here's things we did wrong. We want to improve on it, etc., etc. You make people, as soon as they arrive, feel proud of where they are, and you allow the people who are proud of where they are to voice that they are so, and then they start policing themselves. It doesn't have to be propaganda. You don't have to make stuff up. There are many great things that the people of Great Britain should be proud of, and all you do is you just maintain that within your culture, and people won't allow all the other dickheads to denigrate it. We've just eradicated and eroded all positivity about being British, English, Scottish, Welsh, whatever it might be, Irish, whatever it might be. We've just eradicated it and said that's bad.
Well, that's certainly true, but this is about incentives, isn't it? If you're a business,
what I'm getting at is you could take every one of the new policies within that immigration policy, and you could fix it by just maintaining value in your own country.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's just do a couple more. Deportation of foreign criminals. This is important. Any offence committed by a foreign national in the UK will be reported to the Home Office rather than only those crimes where they've been jailed as at present. So, I mean, this is big. I mean, the idea that you just you'd only be reported to Home Office if you were jailed is insane. I mean, of course, they should be reported for any. It's very simple. If you commit a crime, you should leave the country because how are you then a net benefit?
Why would you?
It's insane. Unless it's. Well, I can't really think of any example where it would be.
But why would you support it?
Maybe a parking
ticket. Why would you say,
but
no, I value criminals?
It's bizarre.
Especially imported ones.
Yeah, this is absolutely obvious. At present, only foreign criminals jailed for more than a year face automatic deportation. No, that's mad, isn't it? If you're coming over here to commit crimes and thus make the country worse, we're responsible for our own criminals because we can't help that, but we won't want to import the world's criminals. Absolutely insane. So that's a good one. I mean, that's Starmer. Full force of the law, cracking down. Curb on foreign students. Universities will have a new levy on foreign students to raise money to be invested in higher education and training as part of the curb on immigration. So this is they're tightening up the rules that enable universities to recruit foreign students, requiring fewer dropouts and no-shows. I think there's something about dependence as well. Hopefully there is. Anyway, this has been an absurd scam, the whole foreign students and dependence thing. So
yeah, they're just loopholes to get people in. Of course, they've been exploited. Why wouldn't they be?
And this is again about incentives. They're looking. Apparently, ministers are understood to be looking at a charge of 6% on the $12 billion a year fee income that universities generate from overseas students. So, universities have just been high on the crack of overseas students, and they just can't keep doing that. It's just a total scam. And then you've got the dependence problem. Legal restrictions. Oh, this is interesting. Judges are to have their powers to block the deportation of foreign criminals and illegal migrants restricted. Ministers will tighten rules that allow judges to grant asylum under the ECHR in exceptional circumstances. And they cite this ludicrous case where this family of 6 from Gaza came in on the Ukrainian scheme, and the judge just said, "Oh, well, this is the case. It was very compelling or exceptional. So this is a loophole. So they can come in under Article 8 of the ECHR, even though it's for Ukrainians. I think that's absolutely disgusting. That's just a judge on the day going, "Oh no, come on, guys." It's like that's not what the rules for. It's for Ukrainians who are fleeing a horrible war. So you could say, of course, Gaza they're fleeing a war. So that's true as well.
Yeah,
but it was for Ukrainians, so that's the point.
Yeah,
I'm not having a go at Gaza, and I can understand it's tough if you're a pastor. Obviously, it's horrible.
I know you're not,
but it doesn't mean everyone can come here. It couldn't work.
The reason we criticise somewhere like that now, it's the same reason that the term racist has been entirely eroded and watered down, doesn't hold any meaning whatsoever anymore. There are probably many thousands of cases of immigration that are worthy, but it's all been bollocksed up by the do-gooding.
Yeah,
we're full.
I know.
Okay, and people go, "Oh, have you ever flown over the UK and seen how green and open it is?" Yeah, I quite fucking like it actually.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you very
called the
much.
country. That's
Yeah,
the bit that
yeah. What's that got to do with anything? What, you're just going to fill
we
the
can
whole
fill it
place
all
up?
up. Yeah, yeah. Why can't we fill that up with warehouses? Like, because that's called England. That bit you want to fill up. Yeah, I
It's
know. It makes me so mad.
it's astonishing. It's
It,
astonishing.
and yeah, I got a bit angry there, but actually, yes, of course,
No, no, no.
Palestinians have more of a case than many people. We can't take them all in,
Yeah,
but they have more. But we're so used to hearing these cases. Oh, his kid can't eat chicken nuggets and so on, and so. But it's these activist judges. Now, the question is, will this work to get hold of these activist judges? Because this is what it's saying: they'll tighten up their powers for judges on a whim to overturn these cases or
but
to
they're
interpret
all
them very
Starmer's
loosely.
pals, Nick, aren't they?
Hmm?
This is why this is weird,
It's weird because
borderline
Starmer's
weird.
Mr. Human Rights and he's
They're
Mr.
all his
Lawyer.
pals.
Yeah, they're his mates.
He's been working in the background for
You could
decades to
just call them
support
up,
these
Gary. Could
dudes.
you stop letting everybody off?
Yeah. How is he
I'm not
making the
called
phone
Gary.
calls? None of them are called Gary. Imagine. I wonder if there's anyone who's reached the
Hugh, could you
bar.
stop letting everyone off at these court cases? It's really
Yeah.
embarrassing. I'm going to have to make a law to stop you now. Yeah,
It's
he was very
incredible.
clear in the press conference. Will you leave the ECHR? No, and that's a big problem immediately. There's the ECHR. There's the Human Rights Act, which beholdens us to the ECHR, keeps us in it. Two big problems there. He won't leave the ECHR. He's Mr. ECHR, and his argument was it's these treaties that allow us to make international deals. Blah blah. And
Well, rewrite your own. I mean, there are all these wet flannels who say the ECHR is we'd get rid of human rights if we got rid of the ECHR. No, they existed long before the ECHR and the Human Rights Bill. We
of
we
course, we
didn't get
invented
to
them.
know. We didn't get to. I forget the Human Rights Bill is 2010, and that ties us to the ECHR. We didn't get to 2010 without human rights. I mean, we had plenty of problems with human rights, but we didn't get to 2010 without any human rights and somebody had to write a piece of paper that we all signed up to. That's not what's happening. And we could just get rid of it all and restart again so that we maintain human rights, which nobody's got an issue with. All of us, even those who would love to see them all sent back, will need their human rights protecting at some point in their life. We all need that. What it doesn't need to do is damage our human rights by allowing other policies to come in and attack it.
Well, as David Starkey said, human rights have become not rights of the individual against the state, but rights of the minorities against the majority. And I see that as,
Starkers. Nice work.
yeah, nailed it. And there's only a couple more actually. There's so that is the key though. If you can get that done, because without attacking the activist judges and the ECHR, you are screwed.
Exactly. It's the dark underbelly that's protecting all of this.
And
We've talked about it
Kemi has
before
been
with
weak on that as
immigration.
well because she still hasn't said yet that she'll leave the ECHR.
She thought that was good politicking, I think, when she was up against Jenner. And she might be right because she won that race at the time. I don't know if she'd win it now, to be honest, but she thought it was good politic. Oh, well, because she's always had this philosophy that she needs 2 years.
She won it because boomers thought a black woman was untouchable because they hadn't thought it through and noticed how people treated Suella Braverman, for example. Not that she's black, but same principle.
I think under the misnomer that it would be very difficult for someone on the left to criticise a black woman, which obviously became a nonsense immediately. It became a nonsense in the first PMQs because
it was a nonsense when they called Suella Braverman a fascist. It's a complete boomer nonsense.
Yeah.
Should we finish them just because we've got one more left of these, which is rollout of e-visas? All foreign nationals will be required to have e-visas so the Home Office can track when they leave and enter the UK. Now that's interesting. This is kind of like Blair is this Blair trying to sneak in his ID card, but only for foreign nationals?
There's always an ID card policy.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? It's like IDs just for them, e-visas. That sounds like an ID to me. I mean, I could be wrong. It's a Blair type idea that because he's been talking for a while about ID cards would stop illegal immigration.
The idea, just to remind people, ID cards in their own right are not the end of the world. It'd be great for things like general elections. It's the malevolent use of the data that everybody. It's like digital currency. It's the malevolent use of that when you can turn people's bank accounts off, when you have ID cards, when you can identify absolutely everything about somebody and put a black mark against them or whatever it might be. It's the control of the data that people don't. I mean, some people might because they might not be up to speed on things, but it's not the policy itself. It's not the physical outcome, the ID card, the digital currency that terrifies people. It's what sits behind and controls that. In order to have those things work, you've got to have a system of data that needs to be protected from people in power. And they're the very people that control that data. So this is what we're against. I mean, in a world where nobody in power could get at the data, we'd have another discussion because it'd be great. Yeah, I mean, everybody who turns up to a polling booth has to have an ID card and has to be able to prove. It would work in the States. It would work here. We might even see a big change. It would remove fraud. But I'm a big fan of cash, so I'm not going to argue for digital currency. But it's not that; it's the control of the data.
Yeah, I mean, it's post-COVID as well. To me, it's like the idea that they can just switch you off. You didn't have the vaccine, so we've just turned you off. We've turned your bank account, and
which they would have done.
Yeah,
which they absolutely would have done if they could. You've only got to look at communist China. People were on a color-based system, almost like a traffic light system. Could they leave their apartment building because they needed a card to get out, a citizen card to get out? Boom, on the gate. No, sorry.
While a drone circled your building telling you to give up your thirst for freedom. That was a real thing.
Exactly.
Well, it says, importantly, e-visas will make it much easier for immigration enforcement to identify those who try to stay and work in the UK illegally, to track them down and take action against them. It's the Blair thing. It's like that's how he gets his... He's been saying this for a while. And if it was just used for that, you'd be like, yeah, fine. But let's see on that one. That's the detail on the white paper. I mean, I thought it was important to go through and not just all the hilarious rhetoric around it, which has been a beautiful time.
Oh, man.
And we've got so much to talk about, but I think we've got to put it in the paywall bit now because we've already done virtually an hour on YouTube.
Paywall's going to be stonking.
Paywall's going to be stonking.
That paid their subscription are well in for a treat.
Yeah, we've got to talk about the Rupert Lowe thing and his statement of being vindicated and the police dropping their investigation, which I think is or concluding that there's not enough evidence. So that's going to be huge. So come and see us in nickdixon.net if that's your type of thing. And very cheap to subscribe, and more and more subscribers every day. People are loving it. Really, it's like a one-man media operation. You don't need to watch the telly. Shouldn't say that. We're on the telly. Watch GB News and nickdixon.net, and that's it. And you can find Paul at Paul Cox Comedy. Anything you'd like to say to our... I don't want to call them the free listeners because that devalues them, but...
I mean, my advice is always keep it real.
Yeah, Paul's always said that. And the other thing, he said the Kanye thing, but he can't say that.
No, I can't.
That's his other catchphrase.
That's not in the paywall either. That's in the paywall after dark section.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for listening and watching, everyone, on the non-paywall bit. And hopefully you got some good value there. About an hour purely on the Enoch Starmer. And we'll see you very soon. Goodbye.